Writer's block, the psychological torment that all writers know too well. It is the bane of our existence, the killer of our joy, and the inhibitor of storytelling as we know it. Today, I'm going to share my tips on how I deal with this. For reference, I just finished my first draft of my epic fantasy novel. It is a little over 100,000 words right now. It is currently in the editing phase, which is going very well. I write every single week for my political YouTube channel. I have thousands of writings, some projects that are finished, some projects that are in progress. I have a lot of experience writing on deadlines and finishing large stories. I'm very familiar with writer's block, and it's high time I share my thoughts about it. I think writer's block mostly stems from the pressure and the stress that we sort of put on ourselves when we write. When we pressure ourselves to be creative, it can be stifling, which leads to this feedback loop of being pressured to create, being stifled by that pressure, and so on. Fast forward a few months and you haven't made any progress on your story. It's frustrating. I don't know if this is true for anyone else, and I've never seen this tip on any how to combat writer's block video on TikTok or YouTube, but I feel like I get great ideas when I'm driving in my car. Now, let me explain. I will be focused on the road, on traffic in front of me, and seemingly out of nowhere, in the back of my brain, I will get a solution to a plot hole that I've been struggling with for weeks or months. And before people get into the "what if I don't have a car" bean soup comments incoming, I don't really think you need a car to do this. The best explanation for why I think this happens is that when my brain is forced to focus on something else, it relaxes the part of my brain that I'm pressuring to be creative and allows those ideas to flow organically. But I don't have any proof. There's no science behind that, I don't think, that I know of. But I think driving works so well for me because I am focused, but I'm also on autopilot a little bit. It's not like doing math homework where it's all of my energy is being focused on one thing. It's something that I've been doing for over 10 years at this point. It's something that I can do very easily, but it is still something where a part of my brain does need to be focused. So if there's an activity where you are focused but can still relax parts of your brain, what comes to mind is things like knitting or crocheting, for example. I feel like that could work too, but I feel like everyone is also different. So this is probably one that requires some amount of self-reflection or self-discovery, but anything where, and this is going to sound so stupid, but where you have to focus but not too much. You know what I mean? I don't know why. That always works for me. I know there were some people that were saying that they are bogged down by the world or they're stressed from their job, and this is also inhibiting their writing, and I completely understand this. Writing is something that I love on multiple levels. I use it for reflection. I use it for research to understand things. But most of all, I love it for storytelling. And I feel like for most people watching this video, they are probably engaging with writing in this way and maybe struggling with writer's block in this way. But I love storytelling. And I truly do it for the love of the game. I've been writing fan fiction since I was probably 10 or 11 years old. Even before I knew what fan fiction was, the very first fan fiction that I wrote was a self-insert with me and Ash Ketchum in the Pokemon universe where we caught Pokemon together and then at the end we kissed. And I have searched for years to try and see if I can find it, and I feel like it's in a notebook that got thrown out somewhere, and I will mourn that forever. But that is besides the point. The point is, I love storytelling for the love of the game. Right? It's not always to finish a project. Sometimes you have to meet deadlines, but if you're someone who's writing your first novel or just writing for fun, you have to get out of the mindset whenever you sit down to write that it's homework. This is something that I had to do. I had to, when you're writing a debut novel, it is something that you're pushing yourself to do. It is a difficult thing. And sometimes you need to write even if you're not feeling motivated by it. But you also need to remind yourself, wait a minute, I'm doing this because it's something that I really, really want to do. It is a kind of work, but this isn't my job. This isn't what's paying the bills. And that has always helped me to loosen up a bit and relax. It gets me out of that mindset of oh, this is something I have to do, and then stressing myself out about it. Getting in the mindset of no, this is something that I want to do. Reminding yourself this is for fun. This is a side project. This is not something that your life is going to depend on. It may feel like that where you're if I don't get this story out, then my life is over. It might feel like that. But that's not the reality, right? For most of us, it's just a matter of reframing that mindset. I think it has helped me a lot. When I view my writing as an escape from the world, it helps me compartmentalize and remove myself for a moment from those world tragedies, from capitalism, from patriarchy, from the stress of just like being a fucking human, right? And that allows me to focus on my writing, viewing it as an escape, viewing it as something that I get to do. I can focus on my writing, I can focus on my storytelling, and the things that allow me to relax and have fun. The next thing is inspiration. Now, this depends on what you are writing. I always recommend people taking inspiration from the genre that they are writing in. I think this helps a lot. I love The Lord of the Rings. I am currently rereading the books. I love the movies. Whenever I'm depressed, I will put on Fellowship of the Ring just to feel something. Those scenes in the Shire with Gandalf, they always make me feel so warm and fuzzy inside and can pull me out of like a really dark place. I also just finished reading The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafe by Shannon Chakraborty, which was so fun. I am working my way through City of Brass by her right now. I am also reading Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which is so good. Her prose is so fucking beautiful. I know some people don't like very lyrical prose, but it is like, if you want to get better at writing effective and beautiful prose, read Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. It is so genuinely good. She's very good at like atmospheric writing. I feel like that's probably the best way to put it. But when I'm looking for inspiration or something that gets me like really excited about writing, I will typically focus on theatrical and creative and like campy work. Some of my favorite things to watch, for example, are the Knives Out movies. They are solid movies with a very distinct story structure. Oh my gosh, that was very difficult to say. They're fun to watch. They have vibrant characters. They have a very clear message and theme throughout. If you need focus in your inspiration, these are the kind of movies that help me the most. You may need to find your own, but just getting a feel for story structure or character introductions, things that you think about, what you are struggling with in your writer's block. Are you struggling to build upon a scene? Are you struggling to write a character? Are you struggling to create atmosphere? What are you struggling to evoke certain emotions, right? Like, what exactly are you struggling with? And then seek out movies, books, video games that do that really well and analyze it. Why is this working well? How are these writers doing this? And how can I recreate that feeling in my own writing? I also love Clue. I love Noises Off. I'll play Baldur's Gate 3 if I need inspiration. For fantasy, I return to BBC's Merlin. That was very formative to my upbringing, and each episode follows like a very straightforward structure. It's funny, it's a beautiful setting, the characters are vibrant. I think the best way to try to hone why you're dealing with writer's block, right? I think primarily it does have to do with like some amount of stress, but if you are really struggling to craft a story, figuring out what part of the story you are struggling with. So for example, look at the conflict presented in the stories that you are gaining inspiration from, right? What are the obstacles? How are they solved? How does that story tie into the character arcs? How are the characters introduced? What are we given to establish the setting? What is this story trying to say? This has been immensely helpful for me just in story writing and just writing in general. But looking at a piece of media, looking at the story and asking yourself, how can I apply the strengths of this story to my own work? How do the characters solve problems? How can you learn from how these characters are written? I feel like going back to movies and television and books and video games that really make you feel something is a very fast way to gain inspiration and a desire to tell your own stories, at least for me. I think that is immensely helpful. This is another one that this is like a TikTok tip that I was initially skeptical of, but I have actually used from time to time, and I have gotten surprising results. And it's do the opposite in your writing of what you would expect. And what I mean by this is, if you're at a point in your story, you don't know where to go, write the opposite of what you would expect, or go back to the most recent statement you made and do the opposite. Write what the opposite of what you initially wrote happened. This doesn't always work. Like I said, this is a TikTok tip. So every so often it's like, well, this can't be changed and we need to work around this. In which case, revert back to my other tips. But if there's an arc that isn't working and needs to be edited anyway, fuck it. Like, this is a quick tip that allows your story to go in a completely different direction and feel really fresh. So if you're at a point where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this, do the opposite of what you would expect. Again, it doesn't always work, especially if you've done a certain amount of build up for a certain direction. Like if you're writing a mystery and all of your clues are leading towards the butler did it, and then you change it so that like the maid did it or something, then your readers are going to be pissed because they're going to be like, well, you laid out all of these clues and this was totally out of left field. But this can work in some situations. So this is one to sort of keep in the back pocket. It's lower on the list for a reason. And the last tip for writer's block on a certain project is to write something else. I know people get kind of not defensive, but they get discouraged when I suggest this. And that's because usually there's one or two projects that are very important to writers that they're really dedicated to working on, and they want to finish those projects. They want to get them done. They want them to be edited. They want them done well. And that's what their main focus is. But in doing so, you can kind of get tunnel vision. You can sort of get that stress that comes with pressuring yourself to write. And you can get stuck in this cycle of like just feeling stuck. So to combat this, for every like big serious project that I'm working on, I have several smaller like unserious projects that I'm writing for fun. And I say fun not to call my book not fun, because it very much is. There's humor and it's fantasy. It is very fun, but because I don't necessarily have stock in these smaller projects successfully developing into something serious, if that makes sense. And because of that, I have so much more freedom when it comes to the writing, where I'm like, I can just write something that's bad. And you would be surprised how many fucking gems that have started off as like stupid, like shit posting projects that have ended up becoming actually really cool stories that have maybe even become serious projects. That's not the goal. Of course, the goal is to get out of your own head and just write something, for God's sake. But that's not to say that like you're wasting your time. I think that's also another concern with writers, where they're like, well, if I'm not working on my big serious project and I'm working on this stupid little project that I don't really care about, I'm wasting precious time that could have been spent on this big serious project. But if you're struggling to write the big serious project anyway, then like fucking you should write. You're at least you're writing if you're writing something else, you know? So that has also been immensely helpful, because you can try, like, this is what I found too, where I'll be writing like a smaller project that's like a little fun project, again, that I don't super care about. And I will come up with a solution and like a story device or a scene or a character that I'm like, oh, wait, this can help me in this thing that I'm struggling with, right? Because at least you're going through the process of problem solving, of story crafting, of character writing. And again, there's less of an expectation to make it super good, right? Than it would be when you're working on like your serious project. So I think this is probably one of the most effective, where just write something dumb. Write something stupid. Write about some fucking little goblins going on a little adventure, right? Like, do whatever you need to loosen up. Fan fiction. Write some fan fiction. Like, whatever. Write an AU. Like, that, getting you out of your own head is the first step to combating something like writer's block, where it's all in your fucking head, right? There's not some mysterious force that is keeping you from writing. It's probably just stress and pressure that you're putting on yourself. It's all in your fucking head, and you can overcome it. It will pass. I promise. It always does. But the main thing is you gotta keep writing. And that's another thing that I feel like a lot of writers struggling with writer's block hate to hear, because then the pressure's back on. You gotta keep writing. But I I find writing harder to get back into when I have taken long breaks from it. I try to write every day, even if it's a couple sentences. I don't always succeed. I just went on vacation and I didn't write for like 3 or 4 days, and getting back into the writing was harder. But also, I think in a way my mind was like refreshed and I was coming up with like new ideas. It was just harder to get back into writing, if that makes sense. Like it was harder to write well. But try to write every day. Try to write every day, even if it's a couple sentences, if it's a couple hundred words, whatever. Write every day if you can. Having a little scene in your notes app when you're on the bus ride home from work, when you are waiting for your chicken to be done cooking in the oven, when you're waiting for a doctor's appointment, anything. Even if you're just scribbling down ideas as opposed to like actually physically writing, you know? This is something where you can go back when you're feeling more inspired or when you have more energy to actually write and create something that is actually good, right? Because everybody's first draft is shit. It's like universally acknowledged truth among writers that your first draft is always going to be shit. The first ideas that you put down are probably shit, and that's okay. That's part of the process. You have to fall in love with the process, which is so condescending for someone to say, you have to fall in love with the process. But like you kind of do. You have to be okay with being shit and with being open to critique and being open to feedback and being open to change and being okay with being shit because at least you wrote something. And then at that point, taking the critique, taking the feedback and making it into something better, something that people will actually want to read, right? I think we have this pressure as writers and artists and just like people in general, especially with like the rise of like people calling each other cringe, is that no one feels like they can be bad at anything, you know? We have so many resources to help us learn things that like there's this expectation that we always have to be good. And that is so stupid, especially when you're building a craft like writing, where it takes practice, it takes study, it takes getting feedback and critique from other people and all that shit. Like you need to be okay with being bad at something before it becomes good. It is a long and difficult process to write a story, but it is also so fucking rewarding. And for me, it is something that I am just compelled to do. Like I have to do it. I have written more in this past year, I think, than I have in previous years. In the past 5 years, 2021. Yeah, I feel like in the past 5 years, I've written more in the past 5 years than I have written in like the rest of my adult life. And it really is just a habit that you build, like exercise or like incorporating a healthier diet. Like it really is something where it gets easier the more you do it, and the more you do it and the more you do it, the more you will learn from yourself. The more you read widely. Oh my gosh, read everywhere. I will put my current books that I'm reading in the description for recommendations if you would like them. It's hard, but it's also amazing. And like you're a writer. Oh my god, the most romantic profession ever. You know, like people want to be us. So I don't know. Take that with you, if you will. Hopefully this was helpful. If you would like to see any more writing tips or if you'd like me to share any experiences of mine, make sure to comment below. I will have the playlist to all of my writing videos linked in the description so you can go through them. I've done a couple videos already about my writing, and I hope to do many more. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any. As always, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Bye. Very special thank you to Bagel's dad, Derek, Anonymous, Tiny Axes, Robin Fellows, Iron Dragon, and Laura Bell.